And we're live. Hey people, how you doing? Welcome to the Sports Therapy Association podcast, episode 175. My name is Matt Phillips, creator of One Chat Live, and tonight we are recording live on a Thursday. Normally it's on a Tuesday, but for one reason or another, we are recording tonight on a Thursday. But if you are listening to the podcast and you'd like to join us live, then you can either go to the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel, generally on a Tuesday, but do follow us on social media, UK_STA, to make sure we are on the Tuesday. Or you can join us on Facebook as well, on the Sports Therapy Association Facebook page. We've stopped going in the group for a while because of Facebook issues, but they're the two places you can join us. Or, of course, you can listen to us on any podcast. Please try and make sure that you subscribe to it and leave a nice little rating and review if you enjoyed it. So tonight is all about a reflection on Therapy Expo 2023, which seems like a lifetime away. Nearly recovered, most of us, I think. It was an amazing 2 days. Well, that's what we're going to talk about, actually. And it happened, for those of you who don't know, at the Birmingham NEC, where it has happened for the last 8 or so years. On this year, it was November the 22nd and Thursday the 23rd. And as always, the STA has been there, one of the only, in fact, the only professional association for soft tissue therapists that has been there every year of Therapy Expo. And we had the STA Update Theatre with 2 days worth of speakers. And I'm biased, but in my humble opinion, it was bigger and better than ever. But that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a chat. And with me, I'm going to be joined by Gary Benson, founder of the STA. And I've invited some STA members to come along. A couple will be joining us straight away. And then also maybe a couple will be joining us as time clicks on, because they're still at work. So if you are joining us live and you'd like to leave any comments or questions, then just type them in the comment section and we will see them and we will answer you. But for now, I think that is all the housekeeping out of the way. I'm going to bring up my guests for tonight. So in no particular order, let's bring up Big Gary. Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Evening, Matt. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Fantastic. And I'm going to bring up Georgina James-Staff coming up now. Hey, Georgina, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you very much. Are you okay?
I'm okay. Yeah, I gave it for my wife's from Wigan, and I gave that staff a real kind of like northern. Is it staff or staff? I don't know why.
It depends where you're from. So
I just heard myself.
I'm going to say staff. I'll go with the commoners.
Go with staff. Yeah, that's Midlands and up. Yeah. So, hey, staff, how you doing? And also, we got Bethan Timmins who's going to join us. Hey, Bethan, how are you?
Hello.
Good to see you. Right, thanks, people, for giving it your time. I know, Bethan, I know for a fact you've just this second finished work, so that's very kind of you just to step from client into the live lounge. That's great. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about Therapy Expo 2023. So I haven't got any script for this. Gary, it's your baby. You've nursed the presence of the STA at every single conference for, I think it's 10 years now. With one off for COVID or something. An overall view for you, how are you feeling? Have you managed to recover, or is it still buzzing in your head?
I've managed to recover. I did find it very tiring. I find it tiring every year. Standing and talking, it's just exhausting. But Jake and I are still dealing with all of the relationships that we kind of developed over the 2 days. Well, 2.5 days, because we go there on the Tuesday afternoon and get set up and meet some of the other sort of stand exhibitors. So yeah, there's a lot of good things coming. I'm also already had a meeting with the with Vernon, actually. Just joined in there, business development manager and the show lead, and we're going to get together in the next few weeks to discuss what we want to do next year. Those who went this year will have noticed that we had a lot more space this year. We had a larger stand. We shared that with Tim Allardyce from Rehab My Patient, who graciously comes on and gives us the benefit of experience and highlights. A couple of years ago, he did a live link up from the Olympics for our members, especially. But yeah, it was busy. It was a different hall, so it was the setup was different. There was more space, and I found it a really good show. Really pleased with it.
Excellent. That's good to hear. I mean, I always want to make sure that people who are listening realize how much work goes into it, and no one knows that better than you. I mean, basically now, well, no, actually you started preparing for Therapy Expo 2024 probably a few months ago. It was like, and now definitely it's all eyes forward to that. Meetings happening, like you say. Nice to see Vernon coming in. Thank you, Vernon. I don't think I got a chance to meet you at Therapy Expo. I'm sorry if I did, and I've just totally forgotten the moment, but my head was everywhere. But yeah, great. I just want to say thank you for people who are joining us live. So Glenn Murphy's in the house. Good to see you, Glenn, as always. Jamie Gargett is here as well. Louise Aker is here. Louise, it was lovely seeing you again at Therapy Expo, and other people are coming in as well. So yeah, so much work goes into it. But it is kind of, and I think we talked about this, Gary, there are some moments where you can sit back, especially where you see the bottlenecks in the STA theatre, and you just think, yeah, okay, this is what it's all about. Everyone's mixing, talking to each other. The stand is so busy. Did you manage to have a few moments like that?
Yeah, I reflected on this on social media a couple of days ago. On the 26th of November, it was exactly 10 years since I and a few like-minded individuals got the STA off the ground. And it started as a sort of a small club of like-minded individuals who were, if I'm honest, fed up with the way that the industry was represented, the way it was moving forwards, and I, with my knowledge of the industry and experience working on various councils and advisors, I thought, we can do this better. And I did. I stood back and it was during Michelle Lyon's seminar, and I took a photograph, and you couldn't see the aisles around the theatre.
It's funny you should say that, because guess what I've got here? Let's bring it up.
Yeah.
We can still hear you whilst I bring it up here on there. So,
yeah, Charlotte, who's in charge, really, she said that she was trying to get to me, and she had to walk around the back of stands just to get anywhere near, and it was extremely well received. And I think the work that the podcast does and the work that we do with the resource development has really pushed the STA forward. And I did get the chance to meet with Yvonne Blake from the SMA, with Ollie from BASRAT. Ollie and I speak every year. We have a bit of a good catch up, but it was good to see Yvonne there and representing the SMA and also the GCMT. And I did put it forward that, perhaps we should have a stand where all of the professional associations can go and showcase the good work that they do. Whether that will come off, I don't know. But, I'm there to be accountable to the members, to introduce the STA to prospective new members. We had somebody come over from Southern Ireland to meet up with us to discuss how we might help their college/university. We had one of the representatives from a major training provider wants to get involved. And of course, the great speakers that we had, and my conversations were not just with soft tissue therapists and sports rehabilitators, but, there were physiotherapists and osteos and occupational therapists, coming to our stand and commenting on the quality of the seminars that we were hosting.
Most definitely. And it's funny you should say that. One of the nicest things I heard probably was actually from Jack Chu of Physio Matt's podcast. Some listeners may know. One of the first probably podcasts out there for physios. It started off, but then it very much embraced multidisciplinary care. And he couldn't be there this year, but I had a little chat with him on WhatsApp. I haven't asked you, Jack, if I could read this out, but hey, it's okay. The mouth of Manchester. I'm sure you won't worry if I quote you somewhere. It'll be fine. But anyway, it was really interesting because Jack couldn't be there this year for one reason or another, but he did say he's heard all about it, and he's spoken with other people there, like the people you've mentioned, and he said that we should feel really proud, ourselves and Anna from Anna Maria, who had the Hands on Hub around the corner. I'll quote it because I thought it was really nice. He said, "You should both feel really proud as it remains possibly the soft tissue therapy industry, and that remains the toughest nut to crack in the MSK game, but the most impactful in terms of the volume of patients seen and the cultural weight of massage." So he really figures that we are managing to change the industry in one of the areas which needs the most change, and that will have a knock-on effect on the rest of kind of allied health professionals. And yeah, we're setting new standards, which was cool. And also there was a message as well I read on LinkedIn just while I'm talking away, which was again an ally of Jack, a guy called Michael Schumacher. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm sure there's another one of them floating around, but he's very big in the research in the digital world, and he's worked with Jack on Therapy Live and all these sort of things. And he had some wonderful things to say about. He was there this year with a stand for the first time, and he said that there was notably some really good presentations going on, especially the outdoor theatres like the STA Theatre and that as well. And he only picked up, and this is something maybe we can talk about now or leave for later, but the only negative he picked up on, he left quite an interesting post on LinkedIn, which is about some of the exhibitors around there. He noticed some of them were kind of like evidence informed as well, but he actually said that he noticed for the first time a disparity between the level of the talks that were going on and then the level of some of the products that were being exhibited. Now, I didn't have a chance to walk around, but I know in years past we've both commented on how some of the exhibitors have been really stuck in the Stone Ages. But I mean, it's kind of a compliment in a way that we're kind of up there now in terms of we're really producing some great speakers and knowledge. But is there going to be a bit of an issue where the exhibitors who provide a large chunk of the kind of like in allowing the therapy to go ahead, the conference to go ahead, are falling behind? Is there? What did you notice, Gary? Because I know you keep an eye out when you have your walkarounds.
Yeah. So when we came back after COVID, I had a meeting with Charlotte and Shelley and Liam, and I expressed my concern that the therapist of today, and I'm not disrespecting the therapist pre-COVID, but what I'm noticing is that the therapist of today is far more intelligent with regards to, if something works, why it works. So I was concerned that if they had copious amounts of snake oil salesmen there and CBD products, then they might not do well, because if you're trying to sell something to somebody now, they want to read the evidence to support its use in, as a modality or as an adjunct to treatment. So I think that those type of exhibitors will fall by the wayside because it won't be cost effective for them to go. If they're paying for a stand and not selling a product, I think that will move away. But you've only got to look at the Rock Tape stand and the work that they were doing with Dan Lawrence's modern approach to cupping, movement-based silicon cup, as opposed to the photo that I sent you earlier that, with somebody with a 40-odd silicon cups on the vacuum cups on the back. So I think that therapy is moving forwards. I think that we are evidence informed, and I think, the days of snake oil and some of those other products are out there. I think they've gone by the wayside now.
Interesting. Right, we've just had us two old geezers talking about it. We're talking about the modern therapist, but like we're antiquated ourselves. So fortunately, we have two younger, modern, evidence-based approach therapists with us as well. So it's time to turn over the tables to you. First of all, just for listeners who aren't aware of you, because it's the first time on the show, so thanks again for coming on. Bethan Timmins, you've been sitting there. You just finished work. Introduce yourself, if you'd be so kind, and what you do, where you're based, and how long you've been in the industry, and also how many times you've been to Therapy Expo.
Hi, so I'm Bethan, in that order. Yeah. I am a graduate sports therapist. I graduated from Coventry Uni in 2014, but I was a sports massage therapist before that. I think I've been going to Therapy Expo, since 2015, 16. So it's been interesting to see how it sort of has changed over the years. I run my own clinic, which is where I still am, in Market Harbour, but I've also recently set up in Leamington Spa as well, and I work in rugby, so sort of here, there, and everywhere, really.
Very cool. So you must have started very young. So you were at the early 2015 Therapy Expo. That's incredible. I'm very much looking forward to hearing how you felt it's changed then. So as a therapist who's literally in clinic as we speak, one of the things I want to touch on now is, do you think there were talks there, or do you think that therapists actually gained stuff which they could use on the Monday afterwards in clinic? Was there enough information which was practical and kind of which they could actually put into effect on return to clinic?
There were bits and pieces. I found that some of the talks this year were repeats of talks that had gone on last year. So you were getting sort of repeat information. If you're new to the Therapy Expo, then for you, that's great. But as I've been a few years in a row, you go because you want to meet new people, because we spend so much time watching the podcast or speaking on social media. To actually be able to network with people is really good. But I want to go and sort of get more up-to-date research, see different, I can't get my words out. It's been such a long day.
No, you're doing great. Don't worry.
You want that sort of new updated information. So it is somewhat disappointing to a point, knowing that these talks went on last year and I could have spent that time going and looking at some different things. But overall, I did enjoy the expo this year. I thought it was quite good, quite informative. A couple of talks, I'm quite into the sort of the strength and conditioning side of the rehab work. So a few of the talks that were put on by Tom Hames and Michelle Evans, that was good. And of course, Claire mentioned, as always, gives really important information that I think can get disregarded sometimes in clinic, because it is very easy to just go, right, here's an exercise, do 3 sets of 10, crack on. So it's nice to get a bit more information on that side of things as well. And
that was new and different, because Claire's spoken there for many, many years as well. But that was an example of someone who has moved on and giving new information out then?
Yeah. So every time I've been to any of her talks, sort of things get changed and progress each year. And she's always talking about things that she's currently doing as well, which is good.
Interesting. Good. Interesting point. Yeah. While you're mentioning that, was Claire's, because one of the feedback that myself and Gary heard and people fed back to us was that there was disappointment that theatres were getting packed out and people who paid a lot of money to go there and they were just being turned away at the door because there wasn't room. Was Claire's one of those? I imagine she's a very popular speaker. Did you notice that the theatre was just full and no one else could get in, or? We got there quite early. We had to queue to get into one of them. But once you're in, I tend not to turn around. So apologies to anyone that ignored. But yeah, you see it a few times. You're trying to get from one part of the expo to the other and you can't actually get past because the queues are so big. It's happened to me in the past where there's a talk on that you want to go and see and they've just got, it's too full, you can't come in. They've got people sat down or squashed into seats. You know? Yeah, it's a tricky one.
On difficult. That, Matt, so some of the talks that were repeated were from some of the speakers who were in the STA Update Theatre last year, in the open theatre, who were well received, and then they moved on to the bigger stage. So that would explain some of the repetition. I did speak to one member who said she was disappointed with the first day, but it was her own fault because she only booked the people that she knew, and she found that they were repeated. So there was some crossover, you know, in the main theatres. I suppose that's only a problem if the same people book into it all of the time. As Bethan mentioned, you know, there was a lot of new people there this year, and for them it would have been new information. So one of the things that the advisory board tried to do this year was to make sure that every session had something that you could take away and put in place in clinic on Monday. And I don't know how successful it was, but there should have been some way of identifying the level for which the seminar was targeting. So if it was for a sports, you know, soft tissue therapist or a graduate or a physio, I think there was a key available. I didn't see the program at all. I just didn't have time to look through it.
Yeah, it's interesting because every person in the every speaker in the STA Theatre introduced before I brought them on, I wanted to know how many people in the audience had heard the STA podcast. And it was kind of nice in a way that I think the most was like 6 out of maybe 50 or 60 or 70 people there, which was kind of cool because it meant that there's loads of people we're not reaching yet, which gives us an area to move into and look at ways to try and reach everybody. But yeah, for somebody who's heard the speakers we had on the STA podcast, then we'd had them on as guests to introduce what they're going to talk about. And if you'd heard them a couple of times, it was going to be a bit of a letdown. But, you know, that was only 6 or 7 people out of 80 or 90 people probably who had never heard them on the Sports Therapy Association podcast before. So it's a tricky one. And the theatres is a tricky one. I mentioned to Liam, the content manager, we're going to have on the show early next year, as he hands over to the new content manager, who's also a Benson, no relation. I don't think that'd be a bit conflict of interests, but yeah, Holly Benson's going to be taking over as content manager. Molly, is it? I thought it was Holly.
I called her Holly, and it was Molly. So,
oh, right, Molly. I have to check then. I think I sent an
yeah.
email to some Holly Benson somewhere. Molly. But yeah, we'll be talking to them about that. But yeah, it is a problem. That's something they've got to really think about next year, I think, because I understand if you pay all that money, 2 days off work, and then you turn up and you can't get in to the person you want to see, it's tricky. You know, what do they do? Booking it ahead is really tricky because then the seats are booked and people don't turn up. So it is an issue. But before we go into that, Georgina, you've been sitting there patiently. Introduce yourself if you'd be so kind, and let people know who you are and what you do.
So my name is Georgina James-Staff. So I'm a graduate sports therapist. I studied at the University of Worcester and graduated in 2016. I was actually originally a part of the Society of Sports Therapists coming out of university. So when I first went to the Therapy Expo, which was in 2016, I met Gary and I kind of thought, Jesus, why am I paying all this money and I'm not really getting much out of it? So I very, very quickly kind of changed to the STA. So I've been with the STA since around about 2017, 2018. And I've endeavoured to try and go to the Therapy Expo every year. This is my first year that I haven't been for the 2 days, that I chose to only go for the 1 day. And that was purely just because of an admin error. I left my diary open in clinic, so I didn't want to rearrange. So I came for the Thursday and I massively regret it because there are a couple of things that I didn't realise were on the Wednesday that when I looked at the programme on Thursday, I thought, oh, I would have loved to have gone to see that. So I would definitely learn from my mistake, I think.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I'm really aware of that as well. I mean, I was with Anna Maria from the Hands on Hub, had a little chat with the Hands on Hub crew yesterday. Nice to see Sarah Jones in here, who's a very important part of the hub. And we're going to have them on next Tuesday. We're going to be talking to how they saw the event and how it went for all of them. But one of the things we were reflecting on was that, like the fact that a lot of therapists feel that they can't afford to take the day off work and miss out on that. But I don't know. It's like, it's the big problem of being self-employed, isn't it? Where you say, I have really quiet months, but no, you don't have quiet months because you know how much you're going to make over the year and you've got to kind of share it out and realize that when you have the good months, that's going to pay for the quiet months. And I know I'm biased and I love Therapy Expo because I'm help put the content out there, but it's kind of one of those things you have to plan for. Maybe am I being callous? Is it something you should be saving for? Because I think it's such an important 2 days.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I think sometimes it can be a lot of money depending on the individual that you are talking to. Saying that, let's say that you do lose 2 days work and you're looking at kind of a couple of hundred that you have lost. If, for instance, you're able to take some information personally away with you that you believe is going to heighten your clinical skills or whichever it is, you're most likely going to be able to progress clients to a certain degree that you wouldn't have been able to before, or have client retention. So hopefully, if the Therapy Expo is doing its job, it makes it worth it, right? And I mean, even if it, like myself, one of the reasons that I go to Therapy Expo is to dip my finger in stuff that I'm not comfortable with or I haven't thought about. So it opens my eyes to things that I'd like to further investigate. So just whether it is clinical skills or just upskilling in some certain area, it gives me ways that I can progress, which is matter of fact going to help with kind of everything really to do with clinic, isn't it? Client retention, being able to kind of get new clients in.
Definitely. I think it's an interesting part of the, this is where mentoring, I think, can be so important. And STA members, for example, that's where you kind of go to our coffee. Are they mornings? They're still mornings, Gary? Have they moved to later on?
No, we have alternate Wednesdays, so it's either 2 or 3 during the month. Wednesday evening, 7:30 till 9 p.m. And then we have an accountability session, which is alternate Mondays, 12 to 12:45. And that's mainly, it is an open one, but mainly during the coffee evening chats, we probably discuss something around marketing or business. And it's an interesting segue into what you were saying. You know, we talk to our members about client acquisition and retention. Now, I'm at the same school of thought as you are, Matt, that this should be something that we should be planning for as a therapist, because it's the only one of its kind in the calendar year. It's attended by some really interesting people. And just look at, in one of our talks, we were talking about how to improve your clinic, how to improve the client experience, how to become, a premium service provider. And sometimes taking a little bit of time out of clinic and just having a refresh, or having your batteries recharged, or being inspired by listening to somebody, will inspire you to go back to the clinic and introduce a new thing into your service, which makes you a better therapist. And as we said off air, it's very hard in this day and age to, especially with social media, to put a picture on, to say, oh, we've been to a seminar talk about elevating the client experience. It's a lot easier to put a picture of some sticky tape or some cups on, and people will know what we're doing. So I think, the therapists need to plan. They need to come onto the coffee evening chats or the daytime ones and talk to us about how they are, getting clients, keeping clients, etc. Because, I think this is a really important part of their therapy journey.
Definitely, yeah. We've got some comments here from people who've joined us live. Thanks again, people who joined us live. It's really kind of you. It really helps give us information, because it's not about us really. I mean, hopefully our thought and reflection is useful, but it's lovely to hear from you guys as well. So Rachel Francis Thompson here, who is at Expo as well. Lovely to catch up with you, Rachel. And I hear your talks plural were very, very successful. Rachel says, really interesting, everyone. Thank you. I was only there day one, but I'm considering where have we gone? I'm considering being there again in 2024. It's good to hear people want to understand evidence behind content equipment. And the question is, what do you think delegates want more of from exhibitors and speakers? What do you think, people? This is where you can all jump in, Georgina, Bethan, or Gary.
I'll just start on that one. Sorry I didn't get a chance to catch up properly, Rachel. It was just so busy. We can have a chat, we can organise a phone call and catch up. Because there are things I need to discuss, or would like to discuss with you, should I say. I think with regards to the delegates, and I'm going to quote Mike Grice here. Mike Grice once said that if we simply go and learn extra modalities, extra passive interventions, they broadly do the same thing, modulating pain so that we can get our clients to move more. So I think for a therapist, we'll take a soft tissue therapist, I think they need to understand, and they would like to know more about how we can get our clients moving. And that's probably difficult to achieve in a theatre setting, but some practical sessions, some practical exercise sessions. And I know Dan Lawrence's new book, and I'm lucky enough to have a copy of that, Exercise for Pain. That's a really good starting point. So you get onto Amazon and order your copy. But things of that nature, it's practical things that they can introduce on the Monday, as we've said before. That's what the delegates want and I think need.
Definitely. Georgina and Bethan, what do you personally, is there something you feel that you'd like to see more of, or you think would be useful for therapists who visit?
To be honest, I think Gary's kind of hit the nail on the head. The reason that I went this year was just to, Gary also kind of talked about previously that there's a kind of a certain genre of therapists that are coming through that, compared to many, many years ago, feel like there's a little bit more intelligent. I know that sounds like the awful thing to say, but kind of have a little bit more intellect behind their practice. Not only that, but the clientele coming in also know kind of what they're looking for, or they've seen things on social media and they think, what do you think about this? Have you got opinions on this? Do you know, would this be better to kind of help my pain, or whichever it is? So actually kind of seeing new things coming up in towards the Therapy Expo. As I said, I was talking to you both previously, saying I went to go see Paul Coker's practical about the vestibular system and the visual side of things. I'd personally never seen done before. So doing his practical and then being able to, my first client on the Monday, being able to put that straight into practice with someone who has had back pain for a year, I found that amazing. That was money well spent, to be honest, straight away on that first go. Touching on what Bethan had spoken about before, about possibly having a few repeats of lectures. Sometimes, as you said, if you've got a person in mind that you'd like to go see, whether it is kind of Claire Minchell, I went to go see Dr. Chris Norris again, because I love his stuff and I think he's great. Sometimes it's really good to kind of go over the older stuff, to remember why you like these people, remember why it worked. But at the same time, it's really important, he said, to kind of keep to the up-to-date knowledge. And there was one on the Wednesday that unfortunately I wasn't able to go and see, and it was to do with the use of psilocybin and some kind of psychedelics. And I would have loved to have seen that, because that seems to be the buzzword that people are seeing kind of on social media, whether it's kind of the use of mushrooms or anything like that. So not saying I'm going to give people magic mushrooms or anything in towards clinic, but it's good to kind of know these things. So if you can point people in right directions, or even onwards referral of things, then I think it's great, really do.
That's great. And it's interesting. I know I want to talk about a little bit in a second about the fact that you do teach, you train, you're teaching level 4 sports massage for Fire and Earth. Is that the company, I think?
Yeah.
Fire and Earth.
Yeah.
Well, I did notice this year, I don't know if it was coincidence because it happens once and then you're looking for it as always, but I did at least know 4 therapists or 4 practitioners who came up to me and they'd brought students with them. And I hadn't noticed that before, but it was a few physios who had brought a few trainees with them and some work placements. And that I thought was really nice as well, because it's about if employers are bringing their staff because they think you're going to get some really useful stuff out of this, which means they're paying for them basically, then that's that kind of shows a good level of information being put out there. Is it the sort of thing which you'd like to bring if you could, just pay for them to get the train up from Coventry and that or wherever? And would you like your trainees to come along and see what was going on in these 2 days?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm in quite the blessed position. I missed one train to be able to get to the Therapy Expo, and there was another one running a couple of minutes later, and it only takes me 10 minutes. So it's not the biggest thing to get from Coventry to Birmingham at all. But if it was something that there was an outcry for and people were kind of thirsty for the knowledge, I think it's a fantastic outlet. I mean, it caters for, as you said, anyone from beginning kind of level 3 all the way up to people who've got doctorates and kind of postgraduate courses. So I think it's a fantastic inlet for people just to kind of dip their toe into little bits of knowledge and find out what they want to get that thirst for and find out more for. And then, yeah, I think it's really beneficial for student side of things to be able to get into that.
Excellent. And Bethan, anything in particular which you think was missing or you think, other people would like to see more of?
I think the practical aspects are really, really good. So having things like the hands-on hub and the rock tape area where you can see things demonstrated is really important, because you can hear about these concepts day in, day out. You can read about them, but it's very different to having it demonstrated in front of you, or in some cases on you, to see how things work. Like Georgina was saying, the Therapy Expo is really good at exposing you to things that you might not necessarily be aware of. It changes the way you think about things, and you can go, actually, I need to look into this a little bit more. And then because you're there in person with these people, you can stop them and have a quick chat and talk about, this particular area that you've just learned about. I did the Paul Coker talk as well, and it's brilliant. It just gives you another angle to approach things from. And like you say, actually, it's when he explains it, you're going, actually, this makes a lot of sense. To be able to then put that into practice and use that on your clients and see a noticeable difference in a very short amount of time is brilliant. And where else do you get opportunities to do things like that?
Definitely. And when you've got people like Paul Coker telling us, just a wonderful educator, it's fantastic opportunities to go and see these people, because sometimes Paul will be the first person to say the information he's putting out there is not new. It's not something he's come up with. It's something that's been around and it was taught years ago. But a lot of the things we need to know have been talked about since the late 80s and 90s, but it's finding an educator who can show it to us without talking from like guru box, which just turns us off and makes us feel inferior, or somebody who's not charging us a fortune. So the standard of the speakers, I think, at Therapy Expo, they're talking with you. They're in an area like the hands-on hub or the STA theatre where you're sitting on the same level of them, which I think is really useful for learning. The theatres are cool and they got their position, but it's still a little bit up on the stage. Everybody's sitting watching them. It's still really entertaining, but in terms of learning and sharing and asking questions as you go along, I think the open theatres have really got something really powerful, like you say, when you can get people standing up and doing some. Same thing with James Earls and Owen Lewis with Born to Move and all these people who managed to get people up on their feet. Really healthy learning environment to take stuff home. I just want to mention Catherine Reimer couldn't be with us this year. We missed you, Catherine. Dedicated STA regional rep and support. It wasn't the same without you, basically, Catherine, but Catherine says, I love going to Therapy Expo and seeing all of you guys. Really miss not being there this year. Love the presentations, but also the social aspect as well. Exactly. And the social aspect lacked because of you not being there, Catherine. But hopefully you'll be there next year. Jamie Gargett has said, I enjoy Therapy Expo. It's the first time I've been. There were some very good presentations, plus the hands-on hub and rock tape area. Yeah, rock tapes, I always quote rock tape as a classic example of somebody who's just moved with the times, who's evolved. Obviously, it's a brand, it sells, but you can be a business and evolve, and it's a classic example of people who are there because they have managed to change their products and stay on top of things. And it's no coincidence that Paul Coker used to be the medical director of Rock Tape. So he put a lot of his enthusiasm for evidence informed into their products, and yeah, really great. Chaz Allen, we've got a lot of people speaking up now. Chaz Allen has said, I went for the 2 days and hadn't been since 2018. Okay, I wonder how much that's changed. Let's have a little look what Chaz says. It was a much better event than what I can remember it as. I also found both listening to presenters and talking to equipment providers very beneficial for my wellness centre development. That's great to hear, Chaz. Very nice for someone who hasn't been there before to speak up. Thank you for sharing. Jamie 𝐸𝐿𝐥𝐿 comes back with, biggest takeaway for me was the posture from Ian Range, a hot stone chat with Anna and Katie. Not sure what I think of the glass suction cups presentation, ? But that's cool as well, because Gary, you said it time and time again. One of the things people should do is go to something they're not sure about, even if they think they're not going to like it. It's definitely one across the 2 days should be something you're like umming and ahhing about. You said that quite a few times, haven't you, Gary?
Yeah, and I'm a great believer in sometimes those negative experiences inform you more than some of the positive ones. Jamie, if you're still online, can we arrange a chat, please? I just want to follow up on a few things that we mentioned. But yeah, we were lucky enough I was talking to Gina and Ian when Matt came up, and Anna Maria had to swerve the panel chat that we had, and we were looking for somebody else. So I suggested Gina go up, and Gina, she a little bit worried to start with, but really enjoyed the experience. And,
really
I spoke to Ian afterwards about the posture one, because posture is one of those things that kind of we threw out the baby with the bathwater at one stage, and that posture didn't have any relevance. And we did a really interesting podcast a couple of years ago now, Matt, wasn't it, with Dr. Chris Norris? Well, posture's not important apart from when it is, or something along those lines. So I didn't get to see it, but it was well received. And yeah, you're going to go through the other comments as well then, Matt?
Yeah, there's quite a few people speaking out, which is lovely. Thanks, people. Indre, I had the pleasure of meeting you in the hub last night, wasn't it? God, seems like a week ago. Indre Miskeen has commented here. Let's just bring it up on the screen. For those who listen to the podcast, because this is live, then people can ask questions live and we can bring their comments up on the screen. So Indre says, so I just finished with Ask Client. I think TE was great. It is a must with capital letters. Like we said yesterday in Hands on Hub chat, industry is definitely developing for the better. It's still many things to achieve, but STA and Hands on Hub definitely delivering what the modern therapist needs. So thank you. That was interesting. Actually, it was Indra, I think, last night in the Hands on Hub chat we had, who brought up the fact that she first heard Mel Cash. We know Mel Cash was kind of like the book to buy probably in the 80s and maybe late 70s. But and he was introducing the idea of what Paul Coker was speaking about way back then. But that's a sign that the information, we shouldn't be trying to reinvent the wheel. I mentioned last night that once upon a time, Therapy Expo was you'd arrive and there would be 10 new acronyms, 10 new ways to stretch your leg, 10 new ways to do this. And that's what we'd expect. Or have you done the BAGT course? Do you know this new APR method of stretching? And it's like we expected that. And then we realized something's very wrong with our industry if every year we invent something new, And now when I think of the last couple of years of Therapy Expo, the presentations haven't been producing something new. It's been producing a new way of looking at something, information that was at the old, that's disappeared, or if, like Gary says, the pendulum swung too far. And it's just presented in a way which we can learn. And that's how it should be. It shouldn't be brand new magical things in our industry every kind of year. It's not the kind of marketing model that health and care should be based on. But
what I would say, Matt, along those lines, and to continue what Indre was saying, was if there are any new therapists listening to this podcast, then my best advice is go to somewhere like Therapy Expo and listen to some of the more experienced speakers, because what tends to happen is when we train, and I'll use level 3 as an example, when we train at level 3, there's an automatic assumption that we should go to level 4 and then to level 5. But I think that level 4 is going to be the entry level to soft tissue therapy, and I think it should be now. And then you can work autonomously, and then your ongoing training should be informed by your client base. If 60% of your clients are ladies of a certain age, then you should go and do some training on perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, so you can help your clients. We need to move away from this commercialism of stacking skill after skill after skill, because that doesn't necessarily make us a better therapist. The things that we are discussing on these podcasts week in, week out, the things we have in this Therapy Update Theatre, on the main stages at Therapy Expo, they're the things that you need to know that will make you a better therapist, not necessarily just stacking skills.
Definitely, without a doubt. And that's reminded me, actually, 174 hours. This is episode 175, and I kept trying to stress that. I felt like a parrot, but every single presentation I was kind of introducing, it was to remind people. One of the most common questions we get is, I need some CPD. What's the latest CPD we should be doing? And the answer to that is, well, it depends. What's your business? Who are your audience? How long have you been doing this? But there are 174 hours of free CPD just waiting for you at YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. And that's not us blowing our own trumpet. It's just we get hold of some real quality educators and presenters, and it's all there. And there's something which can suit your business. So make sure if you are listening to this podcast and you're a new listener, or you've got colleagues or friends who aren't familiar with us, to have a look through those nearly 200 episodes somehow. I don't imagine when we get to 200, what we can do, Gary? You're going to do that little dance you do? Christmas
yes,
parties.
probably.
Fantastic. We'll book that. Indre has come back here. What did Indre say? Oh, yes. Indre says, I brought my massage therapist with me. She is a holistic level 3 massage trained. It was overwhelming for her to start with, as she felt that a lot of the things were out of her depth. But I've kind of mentioned to her where to go and who to listen. And by the end of day 2, she's really enjoyed it. I mean, that's just beautiful. That is learning as it should be. That's education, isn't it? It is scary, first of all, when you hear a few things that challenge you, but with somebody, obviously, Indre, you're a great mentor, and you managed to ease her into it, and after 2 days she's probably changed the rest of her therapy until the next kind of experience she has. So yeah, really great to hear. Really cool. Brilliant. And just a shout out again for Dan's book, Rachel Francis Thompson, or Rachel, should we just stick to Rachel, should we? Rachel has said, bought Dan's book, and my feeling is that the movement exercise ideas are becoming more popular. The ST School stand was popular during their group practical session with John Scriven. Yeah, John Scriven is one of the people who I hadn't known before, and thanks to Anna and the Hands on Hub and the work I was doing with them, yeah, great guy. And he's actually going to be a guest on the show, not next week. Next week's Hands on Hub, but the Tuesday after next Tuesday will be an hour with John Scriven with his natural movement and Move Well. He's based in Jersey. Yeah, really interesting new speaker who's been around for a while, but now he's finally sharing some of his great experience. So we'll look forward to having that. Right. Can anyone else hear my echo? If it doesn't go away, I'll just mute you all. It's gone. What else can we bring up, people? I don't want to do more talking. Georgina and Bethan, what other points would you like to raise? Have you thought of anything that you'd like to share? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
The one thing that I did like this year from Therapy Expo is the app. I thought that was much easier to kind of navigate than having the guide to hand, especially because I turned up on the second day and there were no lanyards and no guides either. So I just kind of turned up, walked in, and was a bit like, don't know where I'm going. So that was really easily accessible. Coming to the guides as well, I don't know whether anyone would agree with me, but I didn't find them very user-friendly. It was very much kind of flipping between them as to kind of where things were, rather than it being like, this is on the Wednesday, this is on the Thursday. It was like Wednesday, Thursday on the same page. So it was quite hard to navigate. But otherwise, I thought the layout was really good. It was really nice to kind of see some new faces and some businesses that have been promoted, I know, onto kind of the Instagram. So whether it was like the Highland Wax Company, really good to kind of put a face to a name as well there. But yeah, that's it really, that I would probably say. Yeah,
very important, the digital thing, because things change so quickly, and the paper guys, there was people who was coming. Sadly, Keith Burnett, for example, couldn't be with us for personal reasons, and people sitting there waiting for him because they were looking at their little guide. So I think they need to get rid of the paper guides. Really, it needs to be digital based. Somebody, and again in the Hands on Hub last night, suggested this is a great idea. You know, at trains where you have departures and arrivals, and it's all there, 2 big screens where you just go up and see next up, and you could look there on the different. Wouldn't that be great? That's something, Vernon. Get your pen and paper out, Vernon. I mean, get your iPad out, Vernon. Imagine that at the front somewhere, just like in a train with the next presentations going on across the different theatres. Yeah, ditch the paper. Imagine the carbon footprint you'd save. Anyway, just planting that seed there. Bethan, what have you got? I
agree completely with the guides, because it was a pain in the bum having to flick back from one page to another just to try and work out where you needed to be next. And like you say, I was one of those people that went to wait for Keith, and then he wasn't there. So that was a shame. But the thing with the Therapy Expo, seeing it develop over the years, it was nice. This year I did find that the layout was a little bit more open. It was much easier to find things. It was easier to navigate your way around from one side of the room to the other. It was nice that you could, with the STA having a bigger stand, it meant we could have a good catch up and a chat with everybody, because networking is such a big, important part of the event as well. I'll bang on about this for years, but networking is how we get through our industry. We support each other, give each other advice when we need it. And then when we get stuck with clients and cases that we can't quite crack, it's nice to be able to just drop someone a message and have that support behind you as well. Going back to what we were saying about bringing students in, because you've got such a diverse range of speakers and demonstrations and stands, it's a really good way for students and new therapists to work out what their niche is going to be, what area they're going to go into. I work in clinic, but I also do a lot with sports teams. So I'm going to always err a little bit more towards the sports side of stuff. But it was nice to be able to go and sit through presentations on things like women's health or whatever it might be, and just get a different outlook on things.
That's a really good point. I like that a lot. Yeah, because there is such diversity there, and it's going to get even more. From hearing comments and feedback, there's plenty of different areas which we haven't touched on in terms of inclusivity and that. But yeah, nice idea. Yeah, maybe that's something which we'll pick up. Do you think, Gary, when new students being trained, is there a discount for students? I can't remember for Therapy Expo. Is there?
Yeah, there is a student price point, but what I would say is that while we're talking about money, STA members, we get a price point throughout the year, irrespective of the early bird, the price point rises. We get a one-off price all the way through, so you can book with confidence that you're not going to pay more, and it's considerably less than a lot of people are paying. But I've just been, while the girls were talking now, I've just been making a few notes with the digital aspect and the app now. I've already had a chat with Vernon about the introduction of a search function, so it make it easier to find where Dr. Chris Norris is with what theatre, rather than scrolling back and forth through. So I know that that's already been considered. One thing that I noticed, and I'm going to try and get the data from Therapy Expo, it's on my list of questions for Charlotte, was I did a sort of straw poll as people were walking past, and I think over 2/3 and nearly 3/4 of the delegates were female. And we do have our Women in Sports Therapy podcast, and it's led by Dr. Fiona Higgs, who's very busy at the moment. So as we move into the new year, we are planning some additional resources, and I've spoken to these two lovely ladies here about some kind of informal panel discussions. So if any STA members, or we'll take it wider, if any female therapists want to join in or want to come on to be a panel member, we are going to be doing some women specific talks, and I know Georgina's already done one with Fiona, but I can't ask the right questions. I don't understand the vulnerabilities and the barriers that some of our female members experience. So it's appropriate that our female members run that, and I'm going to give them free rein to go with whatever they want, so that they can develop a really useful resource. And it might be a hormone journey from puberty to postmenopause. It could be anything along those lines. But what I have noticed in the past year, since I've been talking to members, is we are getting a lot of our female members are now specializing and niche marketing for women's health issues, and that's becoming very popular. I think it's a massive growth market, if I'm honest.
Georgina, Bethan, I'm not going to mansplain or respond to that.
I completely agree. So I've spoken to Gary previously. I was actually really looking forward to coming to the Therapy Expo, and I was hoping to be able to chat to Jenny Burrell, who unfortunately wasn't there actually, because it's from going to one of her talks last year and talking about, and I was pregnant at the time as well, and I subsequently had a C-section, knowing kind of the change that my body went through and has since been through, to be able to get back to just being able to work and being able to kind of function and get money back in, let alone into things that I enjoy, whether that's kind of strength training or whichever. It's great to be. I love the Therapy Expo. So I think it's great for those kind of things, but it's definitely something that it's, how can I say, it kind of brought it to the forefront of my mind, especially instead of kind of women's health, things that we might have to think about that other people wouldn't. One of the other things that I'd spoken to Gary about beforehand as well, and actually a couple of people at work, is as a female therapist, I mean, sometimes, especially with working the hours that we have to do late and towards the evenings, and I know that we can have certain screening processes to make sure that new clients are as kosher as they can be, but there are additional things that we have to think about. So whether that is kind of having a panic button or an alarm or something like that in towards the clinic. So there are definitely kind of certain things that I might have to think about that Gary might not have to if he was treating someone in clinic, as he said, whether it's my physical stature or it's the time that I work or whichever. So there's definitely kind of a few challenges, should I say, that can come your way. So it'd be really interesting to get something together to kind of speak about how other females and other men as well kind of perceive female therapists or men as clients, if there's anything they can kind of do coming in towards clinic to actually make us feel more comfortable, and vice versa.
We do discuss that on the coffee evening chats, and we have had a vulnerability podcast before where we had some guests come on and told us some really disturbing stories. But you know, for those vulnerable females out there working in clinic, you know, my recommendation is that, you know, when you get your client in, if you've got a suspicion, you know, just say, I'm just going to pop outside, I've just got to phone my boyfriend, he's going to pick me up at 10 to 8 on his way home from rugby training. Automatically there you've set some boundaries, you know, that your big rugby playing boyfriend is going to come and pick you up, and there will be no funny business, otherwise, you know, you'll be dealing with him. So lots of things, and we have got some vulnerability resources for STA members in the resource pack. So, but also, if you ever feel vulnerable, ring me up. You know, there and then, I'm happy to take calls. I took a call at 9:30 a couple of weeks ago. Somebody who was in that very position, something had happened, and they didn't know who to turn to, who to talk to, sent me a message, and we batted it back and forward for half an hour in the evening.
Fantastic. And as always, we'll make sure that links and that message is repeated in the show notes for the podcast. Best place to find that is probably at the STA.co.uk. You get links to all the different podcast players, whether it's Spotify is your choice, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, or if you want to use Android, all the links are there, and also the YouTube link and all the links we talk about in the show. Talking of links, I want to make sure that people take advantage of the information provided by Georgina and Bethan, our guests tonight. So Georgina, just to reiterate, if people do want to follow you, is Instagram? I mean, there's the website, isn't there?
Instagram. Yeah, so Instagram, it's fire_and_earth_sports_therapy. And so I work for Fire and Earth. So if you pop that in towards Google and pop Coventry after it, you'll find my clinic, and you can find me quite easily.
Fantastic. And then there's also a website. We'll make sure this goes into the link, because you're not going to remember it if I say it, but it is fireandearth.court.co.uk. There you go. Try remembering that. But we'll make sure that goes to the link. And for you, Bethan, timmonshealthperformance.co.uk.
Yeah,
and then social media, Instagram is the best place for you?
Yeah, just at Timmins Health.
There you go, at Timmins Health. Simples. And then obviously UK_STA, and as Gary mentioned, the Women in Sports Therapy podcast is UK_WIST. I know we've got, as Gary said, we've got some big plans for that, starting off from the beginning of 2024. Sounds weird, doesn't it? 2024. But yeah, and like I say, we're really looking forward to hopefully hearing much more from Georgina and Bethan, and also Sonia Fierro, who's as popular as ever at Therapy Expo, has expressed some interest to be part of that as well. So yeah, it's going to be really some fantastic information. And also just to add, for the guys as well, I always say, guys, if you want some CPD, don't bother picking up Cosmopolitan anymore. That's very 1990s. Just listen to UK_WIST and just hear some of the stories from the people themselves, from the women themselves. And you will learn so much, and it'll make you a better person, better therapist, probably better in your relationships, looking after daughters. It's just a massive learning curve, which is just such a great opportunity. So there we go. We'll have more of that coming up, and it'll be interesting to get you all together maybe once every month or a couple of months to hear what's going on at Women in Sports Therapy podcast. Right, it's 9 o'clock. A few more comments there just to mention for people. Thanks very much for leaving your comments. Catherine Reimer says, thanks, Matt. I'll be sure to be there next year. Fantastic. We do hope so, Catherine. That'd be great as well. And also, who came here? Jerry Gargett said, What did you say? Oh, hi, Matt. I saw you about quite a bit. Yeah, I was running around. I think I was serving coffee at one point in Starbucks as well. But he said, next year I'll come up and meet you. I'm only 5'7" and we're surprised how tall you are. Yeah, me and Gary and Jake get that quite a lot. Yeah, we do. And I must reiterate, I know I did it this year. I could feel myself doing it. I do walk past people and I come across probably as quite aloof, but I just don't see you. It's like Gary, we're not ignoring you. We just look, don't forget, we're looking a foot above. We're looking at what's happening at the end at Theatre A, even though we're standing at Theatre C. It's just a different peripheral vision. So we might look like we don't want to talk to you, but I promise you, we just don't see you. So you do have to kind of pull our bottom of our shirts, just go, oi, and then we'll answer. We love seeing you. So yeah, you do have to catch us like that at Therapy Expo. Indre Miskeen says, no one can beat the discounts we get with STA, not just the TE. My yearly membership fee normally pays off with one stock and retail purchase in January. Thanks for that advert, Indre. That's very kind of you. We'll get that on a t-shirt shortly. But yeah, there's so many benefits. So if you are listening to the podcast, and this isn't a sales pitch, because you know what, we're not making a profit out of this, never have and never will. It's a provision for you guys to help the industry, to raise standards, to look after you, to make sure no one's alone. So that is reflected in the prices. So just go along to the STA.co.uk. All the details are there. And as Gary says, if you ever need a chat about it, then you've got Gary at the STA.co.uk. You can contact me, Matt, at the STA.co.uk. And you can find links to all of that on the website. So there we go. Oh, Michelle Lyons. Let's just bring up that photo again now. Michelle Lyons herself has graced us. Loved being part of it. Michelle, you've won like photo of the year. It was astounding, the amount of people. I think it was when you walked on and just went, female menopause, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it was just like, there was like arms up in the air, and somehow they'd bought these menopause scarves, and it was just like incredible. But no, Michelle, it was, I mean, we've had massive feedback for everybody. So to say one person sat slightly above everybody is incredible. And it's not a reflection that everyone else was lower. But yeah, Michelle, your presentation was amazing. And it just, yeah, people were having to leave the NEC and go through the next hall to get back into it again because of the bottlenecks that you were causing. So thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us. And the information you gave was being quoted by other speakers throughout the day. I think right at the end of the first day, or maybe no, it was the middle of the second day, we had Chris Tiley and Chris from Rockstar Runners, who quoted you with your wrist statement of if you get a wrist fracture at like 55 or 60 years old, and that's going to highlight the chances of a spinal fracture later on. It was amazing, the stuff he came out with. So thanks, Michelle. Amazing. And anybody who wants to listen to more of Michelle, then make sure you go to muliebrity.com. Great word, muliebrity. You need to know what it means. But for now, that's it. It's 9 o'clock. I want to thank once again my guests, Georgina James-Staff, or Staff, depending where you come from the country, and Bethan Timmins. Thank you very much. And Gary, as always, for giving up your time. And thank you, people who joined us in the live lounge. Like I say, we'll be back to the normal day of Tuesday next week, where we'll be talking with Anna Maria Mazzieri and some of the wonderful people who were helping her in the Hands-on Hub, which was just around the corner from us. And we'll have, we'll listen to how it went for all of them. So that'll be on Tuesday. Until then, if you could please, if you listen to the podcast, do us the favor, please, and subscribe. Very important. It just helps our information get out there. It's one of the biggest things you can do to help us. Suddenly, all of our speakers will appear higher up in Google. So please be sure to subscribe and support us in that way. And if you do want to join us live, then come along to YouTube or Facebook. Gary, I feel another end of year to Therapy Expo. You should definitely have the final word. It's been an amazing year working with you and with the STA, and I hope that Therapy Expo has been that kind of pinnacle, that tangible way of seeing success. So how would you like to end the show, Gary?
Well, I put it in the newsletter. I was humbled by the amount of people who came up and thanked me for the support that the whole team gives. And, I graciously accepted all of the compliments on behalf of the whole team. It's not about me. It's never been about me. It's about the community. And if we can grow this community anyway, I'm all for it, and I'll support it. I'll support any member who wants to get involved. So please get in touch. You've got Gary at the STA.co.uk or STA Gary on Facebook. I don't do the other ones because I leave that to somebody who's better at it. But Gary at the STA on email or STA Gary on Facebook.
There we go. Right, people, thanks very much. And hopefully some of you will be able to join us next Tuesday on the Sports Therapy Association podcast. Until then, take care of each other.